Hey, I'm Kevin, and today I'm going to show you how I made this tool storage in the Kevbotworkshop. Welcome back to the Kevbotworkshop. Today, I have a confession to make. I am a tool abuser. Come on, I'll show you.
This is a lovely room of death.
That's right, my tools have been living in my sister's childhood dresser for quite some time now. These drawers have become a catch-all for everything I have. It's really frustrating to have zero organization when you're trying to find something. I just realized that I needed more space and I needed to utilize that space appropriately. So with this project, I need to use all the plywood that I bought on this. I've designed this organizer so that it can be made with 3 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood, as well as 2 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood. I got Baltic birch in 3/4, and I have oak in the 1/2 inch. They didn't have Baltic birch at the store, and I just wanted something nicer than construction grade, so that's what we're working on this project. I need to make sure that I'm taking extra care with breaking down my material because there's not a lot of room for error with all these cuts, because I'm going to be using everything from all these boards. So all the offcuts are going to be used for drawers and all that kind of stuff. So I need to just make sure that I am measuring correctly and cutting correctly, because everything needs to be precise on this so I don't have to go out and buy more plywood. The storage unit measures in at 6 foot by 2 foot, and I'm building up the top by gluing some pieces of pine to the bottom rather than gluing a full sheet of ply. This way I can give the appearance of thickness, but I can cut back on some of the weight.
If we need to cut the fat, I say we start right here.
I let the boards overhang by just a little bit so I can trim it flush afterwards. Working with this much ply can be a bit of a hassle, as these are rather large and difficult to maneuver. So a lot of this has to do with me breaking down material, so I will use my SketchUp design to keep you with me on this. Right now I'm cutting down the vertical sides at 31.5 inches tall by 23.5 inches wide to leave space for the top to overhang a bit. With the 4 verticals cut, I can cut out a 4 inch by 4 inch notch for the toe kick and a notch at the top so I can have a horizontal support there. With the verticals done, I can now start working on the supports for the carcass. These I am cutting right here are 23 inch by 4 inch, and I will be attaching them with pocket holes. For the horizontal front support, I'm cutting full-length strips for the top and 2 for the bottom. All of this is strategic for strength, as well as hiding end grain plywood as much as possible. And if I had thought about this before I put the carcass together, I would have drilled pocket holes. So I had to go back and fix this.
I can fix that.
Using a spacer as the same length as the back supports, I can install the horizontal supports. All right, it's a new day in the shop. I finished putting the carcass together last night. Super excited about that because it looks really good. now I need to start breaking down all these pieces here. I'm gonna be making the drawers, so all my drawers are gonna be made out of 3/4 inch ply. I don't have the exact measurements for these yet. I actually have the drawer slides coming in tomorrow. So I'm going to just start rough ripping these down so that I can have all the drawer parts, and then I can start actually putting in a dado in for the bottom, which is gonna be coming from this 1/2 inch plywood. I don't wanna cut everything exactly to size because I don't know these drawer slides. I haven't used them before and they're gonna be coming in. So I wanna make sure that I have the exact dimensions down, and so I can make all my cuts perfectly and that all the drawers fit in nicely. So right now I'm just gonna start cutting down these boards, and we're gonna put in some dados, and then tomorrow I'll be able to actually start putting together the drawers, and this project is coming together pretty quickly. As for the drawers, I'm ripping for 3 different sizes. The first is 2.5 inches tall, the second 4.5 inches, and the third 6 1/4 inches. With all of these cut, I can cut down the sides for the drawers because they will all be the same at 20.5 inches. You can see me here attaching a scrap piece of wood to my fence with some clamps. This is so that I can use a stop to make repeat cuts, but I'm also not trapping my piece between the blade and the fence. So the drawer slides finally came in the mail, and they're a little different from what I'm usually working with. I'll typically get my slides from the big box store or Rockler or something like that. But with these, I decided to go with a little bit cheaper on Amazon. Rather than spending like $10 per pair of slides, I'm spending about $6-ish. With these, they're a little bit different. They, size-wise, they're a little bit bigger on the sides. They're not flat like I get with the other slides, but with these, there's kind of this lip here. And so I have to take that into account when I'm actually putting these in, which makes them a little harder to do. So what I've done here was actually put in 2 of the sides for the drawer. I've actually seen Steve Ramsey do this, and so it's a way that I can actually get the actual distance of these drawers here rather than trying to just measure and subtract for your slides and your sides and all that kind of stuff. And I'm actually going to use a little trick. I've used this in my coffee table build, but I'm actually going to do it again here, is that you use 2 pieces of wood and a clamp, and you can slide these and you'll be able to get the exact distance as you want. So I'll be able to put these in between the 2 drawers, slide them apart, and then I'll clamp them down, and I'll know exactly how long I can make my front and back. One thing I wanted to make sure with these though is that all my openings were the exact same in distance. The first time I put this together, I actually only used my spacer on this one and the front one there. And so my middle ones was slightly off by like 1/4 of an inch. So I went back and I used the spacer on the first one, the second one, then the third one. So now they are all exactly the same, and I had to trim a little bit off of here. So when I actually make my fronts and my backs for my drawers, they're all gonna be the same size now. If there was a little bit difference, you might have it where the drawers are racking because they're slightly too big or slightly too small. But now that I have everything set, I can actually go and make those cuts for the front and back. So rather than me showing you another montage of me cutting fronts and backs, I decided to do that off camera. Typically for drawers, I use 1/4 inch plywood for the bottoms, and I cut a dado into the sides to accept the bottom. For this, since I have 1/2 inch plywood, I'm going to put a rabbet into the bottom of the drawers to save space. Most of these drawers are pretty shallow, so I didn't want to lose more space by using the dado. These drawers are a little overkill using a thicker material, but I'm not upset because it'll just make them stronger. And with the bottom drawers, a stronger bottom will be great because then I can put some of my power tools in the drawers. With the sacrificial fence attached to my table saw fence, I rose the blade up to where I wanted the rabbet to be. The sacrificial fence is used so I can cut all the way up to the fence safely, and I don't have extra material to remove afterwards. For the fasteners for this project, I'm using spax screws. Spax T-Star Plus are phenomenal because of a better bit fit, so they have less falling out. These screws require less torque, and because of the point design, they cause less splitting, which means pilot holes aren't necessary. While they aren't specifically designed for pocket holes, they worked perfectly here for me. To make it easier on me for assembly, I drove in some brad nails. Checking often with the combination square, I made sure the drawers were square. If they were out of square, all the drawers would not fit properly. Off camera, I cut the bottoms for the drawers out of 1/2-inch ply and they fit perfectly. Here's where the spax screws were able to shine, as I didn't have to drill pilot holes. I was able to assemble 18 drawers quickly. For the drawer fronts, I'm using false fronts, and these are coming from 1 sheet of ply. As I cut them apart on the table saw, the blade will make a perfect 1/8 inch gap in between each drawer front. Cutting these to length was very simple. I actually cut the left and the right drawer fronts at the same length because they are the same size, being slightly bigger than the middle front, because they have to cover the left and the right vertical completely. The extra left over will be perfect for the middle fronts. I do not care about a continuous grain on this because I'm doing something I don't normally do and having them painted.
Painted?
For the color, I'm going with a nice Kevbot blue. Before I installed all the runners and drawers, I finished up the top. To hide the plywood end grain, I edge banded with some birch and I used mitered corners. I removed most of the waste with a hand plane and came back with a flush trim bit to clean it up. After some sanding, I put 4 coats of poly on the top, and yes, I came back with a brush after the roller to get rid of the bubbles.
Of course.
For installing the drawers, I came up with a system. I used 1/2-inch spacers in between each drawer to elevate them just right to attach them to the runners. To attach the runners to the drawer, you drive in the first screw and then the second screw before removing the drawer and driving in the third. One thing I had to figure out is the spacing between the slide. For each slide, I used a spacer to determine where I should install it. Using a couple of straight edges and clamps, I could support the sides nice and level to install them. I wanted to move this easily around the shop if I ever needed another surface somewhere, so I used these casters that I picked up from Rockler. These are used for more workbenches mainly with thicker legs, so the screws poke through on the other side. The bottom is fine because I can build it out with a scrap piece of ply, but the top I had to cut down the screw so it would not interfere with the bottom drawer. Before I attached for the drawer fronts, I drilled for the drawer pulls. I used this homemade jig that I learned from Gunflint Designs to do that. I'll leave a link in the description to his video on how to make this because it made it wildly easy to locate the holes for the pulls. After locating the center line, you can drill the holes however far down you would like. To attach these, I lined up the bottom drawer front flush to the bottom and then drove in some screws through the pull holes to fix them in place. From there, you can drive in some screws on the inside, remove the screws from the pull holes, countersink for the pull screws, and attach the pull. Like I said before, the drawer faces will be 1/8 of an inch apart. You can use pieces from a paint stick to space these appropriately. With all the faces installed, I can attach the top, and I did that with some pocket screws from below. I'm so glad I put this on casters because it is easy for me to move to its final home, but if I ever need to move it again, I know I have that option. Now I can start loading this baby up. This thing is better than I could have imagined. I have more space than I actually need, and the best part is these drawers aren't going to be filled with air. Before, all the drawers were so deep that the tools got stacked on top of each other and there was a lot of wasted space. Now I have a lot more shallow drawers made perfect for tools. These tools are just put in there, but that'll be fine for right now. I will be adding some organization in the future to keep these tools still and in the proper place. And if you want to see how I do that, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that bell to get a notification when a new video comes out. If you're watching this farther in the future, the second part of this might have already come out, so I'll have it right over here. Until then, I have 2 more loaded up for you right now. That's it for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time in the Kevbot Workshop.